The sky above the luminous capital burned with soft blue fire as the last human ships moved into silent position. The war had lasted longer than anyone believed it would. Cities had fallen, forests had turned to ash, and oceans had boiled under orbital beams. Yet now the battlefield was quiet. Only drifting smoke and broken crystal towers stood as proof of the long and bitter conflict. Soldiers walked through streets made of shining stone, their boots echoing against alien ground that had once been filled with music and light. Jack Carter moved forward with slow steps, his rifle resting against his chest. His armor was scratched, dull, and heavy with dust. He was tired more than he had ever been before. Every part of him ached, but his face stayed calm. He was known among the troops for his steady nature. He did not laugh much, and he never spoke more than needed. He had survived battles that had claimed hundreds of other lives. Survival was not pride to him. It was just something that kept happening. Around him, other soldiers watched the fallen alien guards with mixed emotions. Some felt victory, some felt fear, some felt nothing at all. The enemy had fought with strange weapons and strange power, but they had also shown courage. Jack had seen an alien warrior die while protecting a small child, and that moment had stayed in his mind. The enemy was not simple monsters. They were living beings with their own ways and their own hopes. The royal citadel stood ahead, tall and glowing even after the damage. Its walls shimmered like frozen light. Human command officers gathered near the entrance, speaking in low voices. This was not just a military end. It was a political moment. The alien leaders were ready to surrender, and every action would be recorded and remembered. Jack was told to stand near the front. He did not ask why. He rarely questioned orders unless they were cruel or pointless. He simply took his place and waited. The large doors opened with a slow sound like moving glass. Inside, the air felt warm and calm, almost peaceful. Tall figures walked out, covered in flowing garments that changed color with every step. At their center walked the princess of the luminous empire. Her name was. Her skin glowed faintly like moonlight on water. Her eyes were like deep stars, old and quiet. She did not bow in fear. She walked with a slow grace that made the human soldiers shift their weight in silence. Even the loudest soldiers found no voice in that moment. The alien council leader spoke in a smooth, echoing tone, translated through human devices. He explained that according to their oldest law, the one who stood as the strongest warrior in the final stand must claim the royal heir. To them, this was not a symbol of shame. It was a symbol of fate and transfer of power. The claim would mark the end of the old rule and the start of the new era. Jack did not understand why every eye turned to him. Officers murmured. Scanners had marked him as the soldier who had broken the final defensive line alone while wounded. That act had placed him as the highest warrior present by their strange customs. Before he could react, his name was spoken aloud, echoing through the great hall. He felt his chest tighten. This was not a battlefield task. This was something deep and uncomfortable. He stepped forward slowly, aware of every movement, every stare, did not pull away. She watched him with calm eyes that held no anger, only quiet understanding and some sadness. The ritual was simple yet heavy with meaning. A soft light flowed between them as the alien council spoke words in their own language. Jack felt a strange warmth run through his hands when he lightly touched her wrist as instructed. It was not pain. It was not pleasure. It was like feeling another heartbeat near his own. Many human soldiers expected a scene of power or force. Instead, they saw stillness. Jack released his grip after the ritual and stepped back slightly. He did not smile. He did not boast. He simply nodded, as if agreeing to carry a burden he never asked for. Remained standing beside him. The law now marked her as claimed, but he saw her as a person, not property. He backed away and spoke quietly to the nearest officer, requesting that she be treated with dignity. His voice was low but firm. It surprised some. It angered others, but he did not care. As the royal party was escorted from the hall, whispers spread fast. Some humans called Jack lucky. Others called him a fool for not celebrating. Alien loyalists watched in silence, their faces hard and filled with grief. War was over, but the real change had just begun. Later, inside the transport vessel, sat across from Jack in a simple containment room. The glow of the ship lights made her look less distant and more real. She studied the metal walls with slow curiosity. It was clear she had never been inside anything like this before. Jack removed his helmet and placed it on the floor. Sweat ran down his temple. He avoided her eyes at first, unsure what words to use. Finally, he spoke with soft honesty. He told her she would not be harmed while under his care. His words were simple, but they carried real intent. Listened, her head slightly tilted. When she replied, her voice was gentle and clear through the translator. She said she did not fear him. She said she felt something strange where his hand had touched her, a warmth that remained even now. Jack felt the same but did not know how to explain it. The ship began its journey away from the conquered world. Through the viewing panel, the broken planet slowly faded into darkness. Jack stood beside it, watching in silence. Victory had never felt so heavy. Behind him, the alien princess sat quietly, not as a prisoner in chains, but as a being caught in a moment she never chose. And somewhere deep within both of them, something unseen had already started to awaken. The Terran cruiser Horizon moved through silent space like a dark blade, its long hull lined with small lights that blinked against the endless night. Inside, the air was cool and dry. Metal corridors hummed softly as engines pushed the ship away from the fallen, luminous world and toward human space. Jack Carter walked down one of those corridors with slow and steady steps. His armor had been removed and replaced by a plain duty uniform, but he still felt the weight of battle on his shoulders. He passed other soldiers and crew members, all busy with their tasks, all pretending that everything was normal now that the war was almost over. Nothing felt normal to Jack. He could still feel a strange warmth in his right hand, where he had touched the alien princess during the ritual. It had been hours since they left the planet, but the sensation had not faded. Sometimes it seemed to move up his arm, a quiet pulse that did not follow the rhythm of his own heartbeat. He tried to ignore it at first. He told himself it was just stress or some side effect of alien energy fields. But as time passed, the feeling only grew stronger. In the secured chamber near the center of the ship, sat alone on a low bench. The walls around her were smooth and gray, lit by soft white panels. There were no chains, no harsh lights, no sharp corners. Still, it was clear this room was meant for control. The door was guarded. The systems were monitored. Held her hands together in her lap, fingers folded with slow care. She looked calm, but inside she was not. She felt a second presence now, faint yet steady, like a distant echo of her own mind. It did not speak with words. It did not push or pull. It simply existed beside her. That presence did not belong to any member of her people. It was something new. When the door opened with a gentle hiss and Jack stepped inside, the presence grew brighter. Her eyes lifted to meet his, and the echo grew so clear that it almost felt like two heartbeats striking at once. Jack closed the door behind him and stood near the center of the room. For a moment he said nothing. He only watched her, trying to understand what he felt. It was like seeing someone he had known for years, and yet he had met her only that day. He found that thought unsettling. "How are they treating you?" he asked finally, his voice low and careful. "They treat me with distance," answered through the translator device on her wrist. Her own language flowed with musical tones, but the translation came out flat and simple. "They speak to me only when they must. They do not show cruelty. They do not show kindness." She paused, then tilted her head slightly. "You are different. You come back." Jack shifted his weight, unsure how to respond. He had visited her twice already since they boarded, checking on her food, her rest, her basic comfort. Some said there was no need. She was an enemy leader after all, but Jack did not see it that way. "I claimed you by their law," he said slowly. That means I am responsible until command decides what happens next. He did not like those last words. He knew very well that high command was already sending questions, orders, demands for detailed reports. Watched him in silence for a while. Then she closed her eyes. Jack felt another wave of warmth in his chest, sudden and sharp. It was not burning. It was more like a soft surge of energy, as if his body remembered a moment he had not lived. He saw, just for an instant, a quick image in his mind. Tall crystal towers under a bright sun, children with glowing skin running through streets of singing light. The picture was gone almost at once, but it had been too clear to be imagination. Jack lifted a hand to his forehead, trying to steady himself. "You saw something," said quietly. It was not a question. "A city," Jack replied, frowning. "Your city, I think, for a second." He lowered his hand and looked at her more closely. "Did you do that?" "I did nothing on purpose," she answered. "But I feel you, Jack Carter. I feel your presence near my own mind. I did not understand at first. I thought it was fear or stress, but it has grown stronger with every moment." Her eyes searched his face. The ritual should not have done this, not with a human. Jack took a few slow steps closer and sat on the bench opposite her. The room was quiet, broken only by the soft hum of the ship. "What was that ritual exactly?" he asked. "Your counsel said it was a transfer of authority, a symbol." "It is more than that," said. "In our oldest law, when a royal heir is claimed by a conqueror, the ritual opens a channel. It allows the conqueror to command certain abilities of the heir. Energy fields, access codes, biopsychic systems. It is meant to make control easier." She looked down at her hands. "But it requires shared patterns, shared structure of mind. Our kind and yours are too different. It should not have worked." "But it did," Jack said. "Yes," she agreed softly, "it did." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Jack thought about the image in his mind, the sudden connection, the feeling of her presence close to his thoughts. He had never believed in anything like telepathy. Yet here he was, living in the middle of something he did not understand. Far from the secured chamber, in a brightly lit analysis room, Laura Morgan stood before a display screen filled with shifting patterns of light. She was an intelligence officer, sharp-eyed and calm, known for finding patterns in chaos. She wore a simple navy uniform, and her brown hair was tied back in a practical knot. Beside her, Brooks tapped notes into a small console. He was a science specialist with a background in xenobiology and neural mapping. He looked younger than he really was, with a thoughtful expression that often made people underestimate him. "Run it again," Laura said, pointing to a set of curves on the screen. Nodded and adjusted the controls. Two glowing lines appeared, moving in waves across the display. One line was marked. The other was marked Subject J. Carter. The lines did not just move. They matched. When one rose, the other followed a second later. When one dipped, the other did the same. Sometimes, tiny sparks of light jumped between them like silent messages. "They are synchronizing," said quietly. "Her neural output is influencing his, and his is feeding back into hers. I have never seen anything like it." He paused and rubbed his eyes. "Humans have shown no response to luminous energy fields in all our tests, yet this bond looks stable. It is growing stronger." Laura folded her arms across her chest. "Command is going to want full details," she said. "They will ask if this is a weapon." "It could be," replied, though his tone showed he did not like the idea. "If he can access her systems through this link, he might control their defenses, their networks, maybe even their fleet protocols if they are still active anywhere. But it could also damage them both." He hesitated before adding, "And if someone tries to force the connection, the risk is high." Laura watched the lines on the screen for a long time. "What about them?" she asked. "The people, how are they doing?" "Vital signs are steady," said. "But Jack shows elevated stress waves during every interaction, and shows fluctuating emotional fields whenever he is near. Their minds are trying to make sense of the link. There is no sign of rejection yet. He glanced at her. They might be starting to adapt. Adapt, Laura repeated, as if tasting the word. To each other. Yes, said, whether they want to or not. Back in the secured room, Jack and sat facing each other. Jack leaned forward slightly, elbows resting on his knees. If this bond gives me power over you, he said slowly, that is not something I asked for. I do not want to control you. Studied him, searching for any hint of falsehood. She found none. It confused her. Conquerors in her history were never gentle. They took what they wanted and broke what they could not keep. Our law does not care what you want, she said softly. The bond exists now. It cannot be undone easily. She looked away. My people designed it as a chain. They believed it would keep us safe by making us useful. A living key is harder to destroy than a metal one. A chain, Jack repeated, feeling a quiet anger grow inside him. Then they chained you before anyone even claimed you. Yes, she said. There was no bitterness in her voice, only simple truth. Jack thought of his own world. He thought of how humans sent young men and women into war with medals promised and graves prepared. Maybe their kinds were not so different after all. Another image flashed in his head without warning. He saw a child, glowing faintly, reaching up toward a sky filled with bright ribbons of light. He heard distant singing, soft and layered as if many voices were woven into one. When the vision faded, he found his hands had clenched into fists. Was that you, he asked roughly, when you were young? His eyes widened just a little. Yes, she said, that memory is mine. Her voice dropped lower. You should not be able to see it. Jack exhaled slowly, but I can. Closed her eyes again, feeling the echo of his presence brush against her thoughts. She could sense his memories too, though they came in pieces. A small human house under a gray sky, the taste of cheap coffee, the smell of engine oil, the fear in a young soldier's heart the first time he saw a friend fall on the battlefield. You have seen much death, she said quietly. Jack did not ask how she knew, he simply nodded. If this bond grows, she went on, we will see more of each other. Memories, feelings, pieces of who we are. It will not stop at small flashes. Our minds could blend in some ways. She opened her eyes, meeting his gaze. Are you afraid of that? He thought about it. Fear would have been a simple answer, but it was not the only one. I am not sure what I feel, he said at last. But I know this. If someone tries to use you as a weapon, I will not help them. She studied him for a long time, as if weighing his words. Then she gave a small, almost invisible nod. Outside the secured room, 2 guards stood by the door. One of them, a tired corporal with a scar on his cheek, leaned closer to his partner. You hear the latest, he whispered. They say that alien princess is some kind of living reactor, and that Carter has a line straight into her head. Sounds like rumor, the other guard replied. Maybe, the first said, or maybe command wants to turn him into a switch, on and off. Inside the analysis room, Laura sent a coded report to upper command. She kept her tone professional, her words careful. She described the bond as an unprecedented neural resonance with potential strategic applications. She also noted the ethical concerns, though she knew those lines might be ignored. Watched her send the report. Do you think they will see her as a person, he asked quietly, or just as a tool? Laura gave a small, tired smile that did not reach her eyes. We both know the answer, she said, but it is our job to give them the full picture anyway. Maybe it will matter. When she turned back to the display, the lines representing Jack and were closer than before, almost touching. Later, Jack left the secured chamber and walked back toward his quarters. The corridors of the horizon felt longer than usual. People passed him with quick glances. Some nodded in respect. Some simply stared. Rumors traveled fast on a ship. He entered his small room and closed the door. The lights dimmed at his command. He sat on the narrow bunk and rubbed his temples. His mind felt too full, as if someone had poured new memories into an already crowded space. When he closed his eyes, he saw alien constellations and shining halls. When he opened them, he saw plain metal walls and a worn uniform. "What are you doing to me?" he muttered into the empty room, though he knew was not listening. But in her chamber, far away, sat with her back against the wall, eyes closed. She could feel his confusion like a faint tremor through the bond. She did not send words or images. She simply let a calm presence flow back along the link, soft and steady, like a hand resting gently on a shoulder. Jack felt his breathing slow. The tension in his muscles faded little by little. He did not know why. He just knew that the quiet inside his mind did not come from him. On the bridge of the horizon, the captain received Laura's report and forwarded it to High Command with added notes of his own. He mentioned that security around the princess and Jack should be increased, not only to protect them, but to control them. He was not cruel, but he was careful. His duty was to the Terran Federation. Messages traveled faster than the ship itself, shooting out into the dark, carrying news of the bond between a human soldier and an alien princess. Across distant bases and hidden stations, people in high offices read the words with wide eyes and sharp minds. Some saw danger, some saw opportunity. None of them truly saw two people caught inside something neither had chosen. As the horizon moved closer to human space, Jack and sat in separate rooms, yet no longer truly separate. A new connection had formed between human and luminous, quiet but unbreakable. It did not care for laws or flags or the old lines drawn by war. And deep within that shared space between their minds, something waited, watching, ready to grow. The horizon entered the outer edge of Terran-controlled space, where human ships moved in slow, guarded paths and silent defense platforms watched every approach. The stars here felt colder, sharper, and less forgiving. Jack stood near a narrow window, staring at the dark line of distant fleets that waited like steel shadows. He could feel even without seeing her. The bond had grown into a soft hum inside his thoughts, a quiet companion that never truly left. Sometimes he felt her calm, sometimes her sorrow, sometimes faint ripples of confusion. It was like walking with another soul just behind the edge of his mind. In her chamber, sensed a change in the ship's movement and the nature of space outside. The background energy felt different now, heavier and more crowded. Human space pressed around them like a wide cage of cold metal and command signals. She opened her eyes and stood slowly, placing one hand against the smooth wall as if it would answer her with warmth. She felt his tension and gently reached through the bond, not with words but with feeling. She tried to share the stillness of her people, the deep patience taught to her since childhood. The small gesture faded into the link between them. Jack noticed the shift at once. His shoulders relaxed a little. "Thank you," he whispered out loud, though no one was there. Not long after, Laura Morgan walked into the secured corridor outside's chamber. Her expression was controlled, but concern showed in her eyes. She nodded to the guards and requested access. The door opened, and she stepped inside with careful steps. Turned her head slowly. Her posture remained upright and proud, but her gaze contained quiet caution. "I am Laura Morgan," she said softly. "I am here to speak with you." "You may speak," replied. "I will hear." Laura studied her for a moment before sitting opposite. "This connection between you and Jack is now under full investigation. Some in command believe it could be a strategic asset. Others fear what it might mean." She paused. "I want to understand how it feels for you." Looked down at her own hands. "It feels like a door that should not be open," she said simply. "It was built for another key, but now it answers to him." "Does it hurt?" Laura asked. "Not yet," she replied. "But it is strange to feel another presence inside your thoughts. My people believe the mind is sacred ground. This is like watching another step upon it." Laura nodded slowly. She could imagine the discomfort, yet she also saw the calm in his face. Jack does not wish to control you, she said. He has made that clear. Lifted her eyes slightly. He does not carry the hunger of power that is rare among conquerors. Laura stood after a few moments. If anything changes, she said, if the bond begins to cause pain or distress, you must tell us at once. We do not yet know the limits of it. You do not know the depth of it either, replied, and that may be the greater danger. Laura left the chamber in silence, her mind heavy with questions she could not yet answer. In the weapons training hall near the rear of the ship, Jack followed an order to report for evaluation. His commanding officer watched from behind a glass panel while two junior officers prepared diagnostic equipment. "This is a simple test," one of them said. "We will monitor your reaction times and mental response." Jack nodded once. He had walked through worse. The test began with light pulses and simulated threats. Normally, his reflexes ranked above average. This time, something strange happened. When a sudden burst of luminous energy filled the room, his eyes narrowed and his hands moved faster than before, striking the target with perfect precision. The movement felt guided, almost predicted before it occurred. Behind the panel, the officer's brows knit together. "Run it again," he ordered. When the test repeated, the result was the same. Jack reacted before conscious thought, as if instinct had merged with something older and sharper. Across the ship, flinched slightly when the second wave of tests began. She felt a small echo of stress and focus rush through the bond. Her eyes closed as she tasted the edge of his training vision, the sharp angles, the cold discipline of human warfare. "They are testing you," she whispered under her breath. The thought crossed the bond clearly, and Jack paused mid-motion. "Yeah," he muttered, "I figured as much." Later, he returned to his quarters feeling watched, measured, and weighed by unseen minds. He paced once, then twice, before stopping near the wall. "They are going to try to use this, aren't they?" he said, speaking to the empty room as if she could hear him fully. She could. "They will try," answered inside the quiet shared space. Her presence felt softer now, like a breeze across still water. A blade unused is wasted by their logic. "You are not a blade," he replied, his voice low with anger. "You are a person." There was a brief silence, filled with something he could not name. Gratitude, perhaps, surprise, something close to understanding. In a sealed command room near the bridge, several high-ranking officers gathered around a wide holographic display. Laura stood along one side, listening as plans were formed. "If we can stabilize the link," one commander said, "we might access luminous defense nodes through her, with Carter as a control medium." Shifted uncomfortably. Such a process carries unknown risk. If mental overload occurs, it could damage both subjects. "Acceptable risk," the commander replied without pause. Laura's gaze tightened. Jack did not consent to become an interface. "He is a soldier," the commander said. "He already belongs to the Federation." A slow silence followed those words. Another officer broke it. "We will begin controlled expansion tests within 48 hours. We want to see how far the bond can be stretched before it destabilizes." Opened his mouth to protest, then closed it again. His eyes dropped to the floor. Back in the secured chamber, felt a faint tremor of unease ripple through the shared link. She recognized it as not entirely her own. "They planned something," she said quietly into the connection. "I know," Jack replied. "I can feel it in the way they look at me." For a moment her presence moved closer in the mental space, gentle and careful. "If they force the bond," she warned, "the link could sharpen too quickly. The mind can break under such strain." "They won't make me hurt you," he said firmly. "I won't let them." In that moment the bond pulsed brighter, not with power but with shared resolve. Hours later, a low-level alert moved through the ship. Security teams rushed through certain corridors, weapons raised, steps urgent. Something had changed. Aliens loyal to the old empire had launched a small stealth boarding craft, striking the horizon near its rear docking section. They were few, but desperate, and they came not to destroy but to reclaim their princess. Jack heard the first alarm while still in his quarters. He grabbed his gear and moved into the corridor without waiting for direct orders. His training guided every step. Intrusion detected, a voice echoed through the ship. Defensive positions active. Felt fear through the bond like a sudden cold wave. Not fear for herself alone, but for her people and for him. "They come for me," she murmured. "Stay where you are," Jack sent back through the connection, though his body was already moving down the hall. "I'm on my way." Shots echoed in the distance, sharp and fast, followed by muffled impacts against metal walls. Jack turned a corner and saw 3 luminous warriors charging forward, their energy blades lighting the hallway in shifting shades of violet. He slowed, raised his rifle, and fired with controlled precision. The narrow corridor filled with sound and light as human and alien forces clashed in tight quarters. Felt every impact through the link. Her hands trembled, but she stayed seated. She knew her people. She knew their desperation. And yet she also knew that Jack stood between them and her future. 2 of the attackers fell. The third pressed forward, eyes glowing with fierce devotion. "You do not understand," the alien cried through a translator. "She is our heart. Without her we are lost." Jack's jaw tightened. "She is not yours to chain," he replied, "and she is not mine either." The warrior hesitated for a split second, confused by his words. And in that moment, security forces rushed in from behind, subduing the last attacker. Jack turned and ran down the corridor towards chamber, ignoring the blood on his sleeve and the sting in his side. His mind stayed focused on one thing alone. He reached the door, keyed in his clearance, and stepped inside. Looked up at him, eyes wide but steady. "Are you hurt?" she asked through the bond in her voice at once. "Nothing serious," he said, forcing calm into his tone. "They tried to reach you." "I felt them," she replied, "their fear and rage." He moved closer, lowering his weapon slowly. "You are safe," he said. "No one will take you without going through me." Her gaze softened just a little. "You should not bind your fate to mine," she warned. "It may lead you to ruin." "Already been close to that plenty of times," he answered quietly. "This just feels different." Outside, the ship returned to guarded stillness. The attack had been repelled, but the message was clear. Was still a living symbol, still a prize for many, and still a source of power. Inside the secured chamber, 2 worlds sat facing each other, connected by a growing link that neither war nor command could fully control. The line between duty and choice thinned further with every heartbeat, and the storm ahead was only beginning to take shape. The horizon moved deeper into Terran space, surrounded now by escort ships and silent defense stations that watched like cold eyes. Outside, the stars looked the same, but inside, everything felt close and tense, like air before a storm. Jack sat on the edge of his bunk, staring at the floor, trying to keep his breathing even. The boarding attack had left more than cuts and bruises. It had shown him how fragile everything truly was not only a prisoner. She was a living weight that pulled war, politics, and fear around her. Yet when he thought of her, what he felt was not dread. It was a strange calm. In her chamber, placed both hands against the wall and closed her eyes. The attack had stirred her people into rage and sorrow. Through the bond, she had tasted the sharp edge of their devotion. They would not stop, nor would human command. Between both sides, only one truth remained. She and Jack stood in the center of it all. "They will never let this rest," she said quietly through the shared space. "I know," he replied, "but I'm done letting others decide everything for us." There was a brief pause, filled with soft awareness. "Us," she repeated, as if testing the word. Jack exhaled slowly. "Yeah, us." Hours later, Laura entered Jack's quarters with a grim set to her face. He stood at attention without being told, but she waved the formality away. "They want to begin expansion tests," she said plainly. "Direct link amplification. They believe you might access deeper systems through her." "And if it hurts her?" Jack asked. Laura's eyes softened for a fraction of a second. "They call it acceptable risk." Silence filled the room. "I won't do it," Jack said. "Not if it puts her in danger." "They can force compliance," she answered. "You know that." Jack's jaw tightened. "Then they'll have to physically drag me." He looked at her steadily. "And you know how ugly that will get." Laura said nothing for a long moment. "And I will try to slow the process. Buy time, but command is already alert. They're moving fast." "Then I guess I need to move faster," he said. She studied his face. "What are you planning?" "A way out," he answered simply. When she left, he sat back down and reached into the bond, not with words but with feeling. Felt the sharp edge of decision forming inside him. "You intend to disobey," she said gently. "I intend to protect you," he replied, "even if it costs me everything." "You should not sacrifice your life for mine," she whispered. "My people already chose my path. Yours should not end because of us." "Maybe my path led here for a reason," he said. "Maybe this bond wasn't a mistake." She felt a warmth behind her eyes. It was an emotion her people rarely allowed themselves openly. Yet through the link, there was no place to hide it. That same evening, armed security arrived at its chamber with formal orders. Their tone was cold, careful, and trained to show no weakness. "We will escort the subject to testing Sector C," the lead officer announced. Rose slowly. She did not resist, but her eyes shifted toward the direction where she felt Jack's presence. He felt the movement instantly. "They're taking you," he said, standing at once. "Yes," she replied. "You must not act rashly." But he was already in motion. Jack intercepted them in the corridor, blocking their path with his body alone. "She stays," he said firmly. "Step aside, Corporal," the officer replied. "This is direct command directive." "Then command can come here and explain it to me face to face," Jack answered, "because I won't help you break her mind." "This is not your decision," the officer said. "It is the moment my hand is on her life," Jack replied, and his voice left no space for argument. Weapons were raised, tension snapped tight like metal wire. Before a single shot could ring out, the lights flickered. The air shifted. A low hum spread through the walls, deeper than any ship system. His eyes widened. "Jack," she whispered through the bond, "your presence is waking something." He felt it too. The warmth surged again, stronger than before, spreading from his chest to his limbs, to his thoughts, to the very air around him. Panels on the walls pulsed with faint, luminous patterns. Control screens flickered. Distant alarms began to echo, not in warning but in confusion. His voice burst through the comm system. "Energy spike detected across neural link. Levels are exceeding safe range. This is not artificial, it's synchronized." "What's causing it?" Laura demanded. Them replied, "Together." Stepped forward despite the guards. Her voice held gentle awe. "This is the shared core, the ancient harmony cycle. Our records spoke of it only in legend, a living bridge between worlds." "Legend or not," Jack muttered, "it just saved us a few guns." The guards, shaken by the sudden change in ship systems, slowly lowered their weapons. None of them truly understood what was happening, but fear made them hesitate. "Stand down," a new voice ordered through the hallway speaker. It was the captain. "All personnel clear the passage and return to positions. No one touches either subject without my direct presence." The soldiers backed away in silence. When they were gone, Jack turned too. Their eyes met, closer now than they had ever been. "Are you all right?" he asked softly. "I am still standing," she replied. "And so are you. This is already a miracle in their eyes." Back in the command room, Laura watched the data unfold across screens like living light. Streams of alien and human signals meshed into new patterns that obeyed no known law. "This is not domination," said in disbelief. "This is balance." "They're not linking to use each other," Laura murmured. "They're stabilizing each other." High Command was not pleased. Within hours, direct authorities ordered that both Jack and be held under joint isolation, separated by reinforced barriers to weaken the link. The reason was simple. Control had been lost. Jack was taken to a new secured sector. Thick walls, cold silence, constant observation. Felt the sudden distance like a torn fiber across her soul. The presence that had become familiar now faded to faint whispers. "Jack," she called softly through the bond, the echo strained. "I'm still here," his voice answered, but the warmth was weaker, like light behind fog. Alone in his cell, Jack pressed his hands against the wall and closed his eyes. "Don't let them break this," he whispered. "This is more than they understand." She answered with the last strength she could reach. "We must endure. A bridge does not fall because the river fears it." Outside, protocols activated. Systems attempted to cut the resonance. Inhibitors were engaged. Barriers rose. But something deeper resisted. The bond pulsed through hidden layers of space and mind, refusing to die. It had grown beyond force structure. It had found meaning. Slammed his hand on the console. "The suppression field is failing. It's like trying to silence two stars talking to each other." Laura looked toward the sealed corridor beyond the glass. "Then maybe the question is no longer how to stop it," she said quietly, "but how to live with it." As hours passed, pressure rose across the horizon. Command fleets shadowed its course. Political transmissions fired across systems, arguing over custody, power, legality. And through it all, Jack endured the silence forced between them, holding onto the thin thread of connection they still had. In the quiet of her separated chamber, opened her eyes and spoke softly into the still air. "Jack Carter, you once told me I was not a weapon. I believe that now, but neither are you." Across the barriers, in a cold human cell, Jack whispered back through the deep quiet of space and thought. "Then when this ends, we make our own path, not theirs." Her presence touched him faintly, fragile but real. "Then we will walk forward," she said, "not as spoils, not as symbols, but as will."